My name is Bob B. from Los Angeles, and I'm standing in for somebody, Dottie T, I think, from Pittsburgh. It's kind of funny, you know, sometimes I come to conventions try just to be there to share something with other people at a convention and have you share with me. I mean, new people. It's kind of the reaching out that goes on. And to get into the subject of people, places, and things, they say, my story is not much different from the executive. It's just the opposite end of the stick. Okay? I started in school before time, and my grades got better. Now, they started out bad, and they started getting better, you know, and I don't understand that, you know. It's kind of the mechanics of perfection. I know what it was. Mechanics of perfection. My grades got better as I went along through school. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, poor, deprived, during the Depression, all the goodies from the broken home, with all those things missing out of the home, all those things missing out of my experience in terms of growing up. The words of love were never spoken in my household. There was a lot of kids in my house. As I say, it's just the opposite, see, but there are so many similarities that are woven so closely into the whole story, the whole similarity of our existence, of the reasons how we got here. Now, I think as far back as I can remember, I think those were some of the things most of these things are in retrospect. While they were happening, I didn't know anything about it. I just was going through life feeling different, feeling deprived. Why didn't I have more? Why didn't other people recognize that I needed something else different? Never feeling quite comfortable wherever I was, with whatever I had at any given time. And I was to grow up, you know, in a fantasy world. I lived in my head a lot. Always things over on the other side of the fence looked better. Always. My grass was never green enough. There would always seem to be something missing. As I said, during school, my head was always out to lunch. I was always somewhere else. I was never there. I learned how to get through school. I learned all the shortcuts in order to make it through school. As I said, one of the things, I always had a dream of leaving home. It was not the place to be. There was always some great fantasy in my mind that it was always going to be good out there somewhere. The fact is, I started using drugs fairly late in life. I say late as compared to today, what they're doing today. I think one of the first things is my mother ruled her house with a big stick. That was her method. She whipped you into shape. But I didn't stay in shape, because it was a constant way I got attention was to aggravate or instigate getting my ass whipped on a daily basis. And I found that was a method of getting attention. I found another method of getting attention was get sick. You get sick, I got those things that I thought was necessary. I got the love and attention that I thought was necessary. I could distract her from the rest of the kids for that moment, to come and wash my face, or to feed me, or to give me some medicine, or whatever the case may have been at that time. So I was to find some of the negative ways of getting attention. I found if you throw a rock through a window, you get some attention. I found if you do some things in the neighborhood, you would get some attention. And all these here things I was to learn. I was learning a lot of negative ways of getting attention. I think it's not, you know, it's a short time for me to try to take you through the whole, you know, to say the people. My mother played a very important part in my life in terms of, I blamed her for everything initially. I blamed another man being in the household. I've carried that resentment for about 25 years until he died. I blame my mother because she didn't make a better choice in her choices of people to take care of me and furnish me with all these things. I carried that long after I left home. I went into the military because that was a place to run. And I stayed in the military for a long time because they just afforded me the same opportunity I had at home. They gave me 3 hots and a cot and no responsibility. And so I remained there for a long time. Now, I can tell you I was a responsible person because I had rank and I'd done these sort of things. I had responsibility. But it was all they give me directions ahead of time as to what to do and how to do it and when to do it and how much. And that was one of my first bouts with, as far as drugs were concerned, of any kind. My first drug at the time was I tried out the alcohol. And I found out that I could act a fool with alcohol, and I found out there was 2 personalities that went on as far as alcohol and other narcotics. There was a complete personality change, and I find that even went back further than that too, because I found out I was even 2 different persons before I even started using. I was to learn something about my nature of my disease even then. See, I had learned how to steal early. I had learned how to lie early and cheat early. I had learned all these here processes very early. And I used them, what I call successfully, with all the necessary scrapes and bangs that go along with all these things. But I was addicted to stealing long before I was addicted to drugs, because it made me feel good. If I had some of your things and some of your goodies and I could spread them around, I felt good. And I had a thing about it. I couldn't go into a place unless I took something. If it wasn't nailed down, I'd take it. And it made me feel good. So I was to learn something about addiction long before I found a drug. My first bout with alcohol, they say, was, a catastrophe. And I found out I could do all the things that I thought I wanted to do because it took away the inhibitions, and I could act a fool, and it was kind of like expected. And somewhere along the line, I was an avid reader, and I had read somewhere about drugs long before drugs become in vogue in terms of popularity as the things to use. Because I started using drugs, as I said, late in life, but still fairly early. I have to say late in life because when you get to be 18 years old today, they feel that you've done all these things. And you're talking about being very naive. I knew nothing about drugs because it was not something that were talked about during those times. Now, we're talking about growing up in the 40s and the 30s, which dates me, right? Not that drugs have changed. They just didn't talk about them. They didn't talk about sex and drugs and religion and those particular things. Not as far as discussing them as to the good and bad of it or the harms of it. It just wasn't one of those things that they talked about. So when I first experienced, my choice, what I call my drug of choice, was heroin, and they say, and I could discover that in the Far East because that's where they were supposed to be doing it. I heard of opium, and we started smoking opium and sniffing heroin, and then we found that you could cook it up and put it in a spike, and you could use it that way, and you found so many variety of drugs in other countries that you can use, just walk in the drugstore and ask for it. So I stayed out of the country 9 years. That way I would not have to be, confronted with the attitudes and things that I had here in the United States. But in the process, I think I didn't know nothing about the progression of my disease. I knew nothing about addiction. You're talking about the ignorance of addiction. I run around in ignorance for a lot of years, not knowing, just not knowing. As I was talking last night, I said my first time being hooked was surprise to me because I knew nothing about hooked. Nobody explained that when you use drugs over a year's time that you can get hooked. They tell me nothing about withdrawal from drugs. They told me none of these things. They told me just don't get sick, and they say the way you do that is say you keep drugs. And one of the problems I find being in the military that they type up orders and put you on orders and ship you, and they don't take the connection with you. And you get sick. And you try to back that up for the next time so it wouldn't happen again by trying to get a big enough supply. Really? And your month supply lasts a week or 2 or 3 days. And I found out the language of addiction is no different here than it is anywhere else in the world. See, I found out a drug addict anywhere is the same. Because I was able to get drugs in any country I went into without even being able to speak the language. Drug addicts know another drug addict, know where to go, know where to get it. There's a certain language to go along with addiction, and addicts know that language. They know where to go, know where to find it. As I say, I spent a long time in the military. The fact is, I spent 11 and a half years in the military, running all over the world, using drugs all over the world, getting sick in many foreign places, finding out what new drugs I could get hold of, at wherever I was at that given time. As I said, my knowledge as to what my addiction was about was nil, even after finding out that I had been hooked for a while. And I knew nothing about the progression of the disease or the consequences of my action. So the progression of the disease caught up with me at this point, as far as the military was concerned, when you start transporting and smuggling and using drugs and can't be there for duty, they frown on it. And so the next best thing they do is they lock you up and take you away. And then they done a cruel thing, they put me out on the street. Now I was ill-equipped about taking care of me, because you have to realize I went from mama to another mother, that it took care of me. And then I found myself on the street with no equipment to be taking care of me. And I found out I could stand on a street corner anywhere, a 5-year-old, and holler, "Mama!" And some unsuspecting mother come along and take me home and give me all those things that I found was necessary about taking care of me. Because I didn't know nothing about paying rent, working, being responsible, doing all these things that people have to do on a daily basis. I knew nothing about it. So I had to give that responsibility to whoever I could give it to. And I was run through a lot of mothers to take care of this. I had to learn about, how to hustle on the street. You have to realize the military, they have a lot of equipment they could sell, and I used to sell it because I like to steal. See, I had that habit, of taking things that weren't nailed down. Okay? And so I had to learn the other process. I had to learn how to run through stores, swinging steaks and cigarettes under your arm and winging it, and running from box boys and all that good stuff. Jumping out of second-story windows and running from policemen and all them good things, exciting things. See, because I think one of the things is, I think there's a certain excitement goes along with drug addiction. That cops and robbers. The childhood game we play, I got away with that one. I turned the corner, he couldn't catch me, Playing all these here games, and I find out they have more policemen than they have drug addicts, it seems, They were standing around watching you. I never could understand why they could go up in a crowd of people and pick me out of a crowd of people and say, "Let's get in the car, let's go." And 9 times out of 10, they had me dirty. I understand it now, but I never understand it then. And during this process of me finding mothers, see, one mother found me. Now, I thought that I should hem this one up and get papers on it. Then she couldn't run away. And I chose, correctly in the sense of you choose someone that's not using, because I understood about them ones using, because they were never there when I got locked up. They never had bail money. They never could visit me because they were too busy taking care of their habit usually. So I found me one of them good unsuspecting ones. It was in school, working, had a place to stay, doing all these here everyday things in order that to live better. She had one shortcoming. She needed somebody to take care of. And I was primed. Hey, I wanted to be taken care of. And she was going to help me get my shit together. And I always wanted somebody to help me get my shit together. She said I needed help, and she was going to help me get my stuff together and help me get well and all this. And I said, yeah, right on, baby. Now, she proposed to me in jail. Eh? And I said, yes, I do. Just go down and pay the bill. And for the next 3 years, I run her crazy, trying to keep up with me. And she became very important. Fact is, she was one of the founders of Narcotics. And along with that, it was one of these cases. She found Al-Anon because there was no Narcotics at that time. She went out and found the only Narcotics Anonymous meeting in the world. How she done that, I don't know. There was one Narcotics Anonymous meeting 21 years ago. There was one meeting in the world. And she went out and found it. And I sent her off to the meeting. I had to go check it out. You have to realize, 20 years ago, drug addicts were very unpopular. To even just to intimate that 2 drug addicts was going to congregate in this hotel, would constitute policemen being stationed on every corner around this building. Because that's the way they treated drug addicts at that time. They had very little understanding as to anything about addiction. So you can realize, at this time, I was one of these people very leery of everything. They're talking about helping a drug addict, because I know what they've done with drug addicts. They locked them up. Period. There was no programs to go to. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. They had 2 programs, Fort Worth and Lexington. And I had my applications in a number of times. I carried in my pocket. I never went down. I was always, I'm going to check into Lexington, get my stuff together, right? I never made it, I'd leave home to go get a loaf of bread and go 6 months later, where are you now? I'm locked up, They've done me wrong. One more time. They're messing with me. Always had a sad story. Always had a sad story. And I think the best thing that this woman could have done at this time was she done for her own sanity. She had to do it. Her own sanity. I used to run her crazy. I think about it sometime. Her chasing me down the street trying to get me to come home. Coming into a shooting gallery to pull me out to take me home. Promising me my favorite meal just to come home. And anytime I wanted to get into a house or to justify my using, that's all I had to do is get on the phone and hear her voice telling me what I should do, what I shouldn't do, and where I should go and get a job and do this and that. And I hang up the phone. Damn it, don't she know I'm sensitive like that? And I'd go, So one day after one of my long trips of this here nature, I come home and my bags are sitting by the door. One of them good sisters, one of them Al-Anon meetings, had told us, get rid of the sucker, I said, what good is he? Now I could tell you how, great I was, because I had a little gift of gab and a little, that thing that we have that I don't know what to even call it anymore. You know, I used to have a lot of names for it. But I think I was just playing on her needs is what I really was doing. I was playing the old con game. And I played that con game, and it had become a part of me. It was automatic. It wasn't something that I had to think of. It just came automatic, you know. When she told me, say, you got to go, she had told me that 50 times, 1,000 times, you know, you got to go, you know. And I always had, you know, go where? I'll go in the morning, I'll go next week or next year or whatever. But this was different. There was something in the voice, something in her actions that told me to say, you got to go. You have got to go. You know? She really means it. And I take my bags and go where I always went, to the street. You know? I knew how to live in the street. I had, you know, become accustomed to living in the street. I know how to live in the back of old cars, old laundry rooms, any old empty building, your house, my house, that I never had, you know. Because I couldn't pay rent. I never knew how to pay rent. If I had $3 in my pocket, $3 was going to drugs, not for a place to stay. It was that simple. It's amazing, you know, I think I paid rent one time while I was using drugs out there in them streets. Now that was just to move in. It's called Catch Me If You Can from then on. And usually didn't make any difference because I usually was a ward of the state most of the time anyhow. I just run out there fast in the street until they locked me up. And I had a place to stay. To get my health to get back together to come out and do it again. And it's kind of, you know, ironic, you know, that I came to Narcotics Anonymous, as I said, about 21 years ago. And I didn't come for me. I only came just to keep her mouth shut. To say that, see, I'm trying to go to the meeting and get my shit together. And I used to go to meetings loaded. And they used to talk all that funny stuff out of them books, you know, talking about rarely have we seen a person fail, and this is the way how it works, and I just couldn't understand how that could be apropos to my problem of addiction. See, I didn't have they took my driver's license, and I felt I was unemployable, and I didn't have no place to stay, and I was the wrong color, and I didn't have no money, I didn't have no car, and I didn't have no old lady, and I needed a new one, or, you know. And I used to take these problems to the meetings, and I say, we used to call them problem-solving sessions. It was only about 4 or 5. See, the only meetings at that time was when you had a big meeting. You had 10 people in a room, and half of them were clean. You had a big meeting. And we used to have problem-solving sessions. Those are the problems in which I used to come to the meetings constantly with when I went to the meeting. My problem was I don't have no money. I need a new old lady, and I need a car, and I need a wardrobe, and I need a job, and they tell me keep coming back. And they say work the steps. And I used to read the steps, and I thought that was working them. And I come to find out many years later that I even read the steps and didn't know what I read. I did not understand what I read. Because, you know, my head changes words real quick. I can read something, and my head goes on to change real quick. Now, there's parts of these steps that seemingly change what they really mean in my head. Now, I'll read the word, and it automatically changes by the time I get to the word. Now, the first part of it in the first steps got to the place where it said we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. Now, see, my head, when it got to addiction, said dope fiend. It said addict. It didn't say nothing about addiction, because I didn't understand addiction. So it changed in my head. It just automatically changed. Click, you know. Okay, They had told me that I was an addict many places. I had been labeled addict. Huh? From the military to the jails to the penitentiary, right on down the line, I had been labeled. Whoop, you're labeled. And I accepted it. I accepted it. But I didn't understand. And I had to, go out and do some more experimenting before I got back to the program. And one of the things I had to do, I had to learn how to understand what the program was about. And I had to be made willing to find out what the program was about. And it was only standing at the gates of death did I want to understand what the program was all about. I think death is kind of so permanent. Now, I had OD'd a number of times, but that was kind of like that place where you find yourself where you always wanted to be. Huh. Now, I don't know, probably a lot of people can identify with that. It's just before you're going over the brink. Huh? And everything seemingly okay. Huh? And when you come out of it, the first thing you say, hey, wow. Give me some more. Now that's insanity. And you recognize that insanity. Right? But I think it was more of a final case was they say, I was about to be shot off of a fence. And it wasn't by my own doing that I didn't like. See, playing cops and robbers out there, they got the guns and I'm the runner. I don't like to be made target practice. Huh? And it was getting closer and closer to those types of events where police sticking guns in your mouth and upside your head and telling you to lay upside a wall, and they down there shaking and going, My last day of use of narcotics, drugs of any type, in July of 1961, the policeman I had just fixed, and two policemen standing down got me spread eagle on a chain link fence that I'm not trying to get over, and I became immediately sober, clean, everything was clear, and I didn't want to die that way. And it kind of clicked on in my mind, it don't have to be this way. See, I come to find out that the events in my life have been very important. I can think of them sometime and I can laugh at those past things that have happened. And more in the present time, I think of those things that have occurred. After my arrest and recuperation that they usually give you when they are chasing you like that, get your health back together, I found out that I could work these steps and that my sum total of my life would have changed as a result of it, to my own amazement. See, this is one of the things. See, they told me about working the steps, and I got involved in working the steps to understand what they were talking about, to really understand what they were talking about.
Please turn your tape, do not rewind. Turn your tape and continue on side 2.
There's a certain amount of action that goes with every step. I hear many people say there's no action in the first 3 steps. Boy, I said, if you don't get some action in them first 3 steps, forget about it. Because you're not going to be able to work the rest of them. And I had to get into action on the first 3 steps. I had to get into action in terms of how they applied to me. See, because I always thought when you read the steps, you apply it to you. That didn't apply to me. And when it got down to talking about God and spirituality, I shit canned that a long time ago. I put that in church. Now, it didn't have nothing to do with churches. And I found out that God and spirituality had nothing to do with church. It has nothing to do with church. Many churches need to find some God and spirituality. They don't have it. And I had to learn those things by staying involved with people. I had to learn these things about staying involved with you people and you sharing with me. And it's been a hell of an adventure. See, my life has changed to such an extent that that's almost unbelievable that I was ever there. And I hear many people tell me, they say, I just can't see you as a dope fiend. I can't see me as a dope fiend either. But I know from where I came. I don't stay that far away from it. I have constant reminders. See, those are the necessary things that I need. I need the constant reminders of the newcomers coming in the door, to sitting down, talking to some of them people that have been where I've been, have done the things I've done. They're sharing with me their experience. Me being involved keeps me in touch with it. And I was just going, as he was telling his story, he was talking about me in so many ways. I was not the executive. I say it was just the opposite as far as being opposed to what he was doing and getting away with, or seemingly getting away with, or the similarities of all these things happening. The changes of location, the getting married going to take care of it, the getting the jobs is going to take care of it. Just so many parallels or the similarities of addiction that permeate the whole thing of addiction. See, I find addiction is a total thing. It's not separated from anything. It has very little relationship as to the drug that I use. Because I find out I'm addicted to women and money and power and all these other things that I'm addicted to. You see, I'm a person of a compulsive nature. If it's enjoyable or if I get some pleasure out of it, it's worthwhile doing it to excess. And I still have that compulsion to do those types of things. If it feels good, looks good, if it do something to me on the inside, boy, I go crazy. Not as long. That's the difference today. Because I see me going crazy at times and I say, oh, hold it. Back up. Get a firm grip on this one, Go talk to somebody about it. And these are the things that have happened, because I think it comes from practice. See, this program has become a part of me by the practicing of some of these things that I have been suggested. It has become a part of life, living. I understand more clearly the things that are happening in my life today. Life has become a simple process today. I don't fight with it. I don't fight with it. Sometimes I will interfere with it, but I don't fight it. It's quite amazing, you said, we have the freedom that we have, that I have found, to come to places like this, to be involved very much in Narcotics Anonymous and the affairs of Narcotics Anonymous. That was one of the things that became very important to me when I first got here. People told me to stay involved. I was with people that were involved. They stayed and done some of the things that were necessary. They went to institutions, and I cold trailed, and we went all over the country. And the only country we knew was California at the time, anyhow. But we used to burn up cars going to all the institutions. Oh, Chuck can tell you, he tore up his oil pan up on rocks and things. But we used to go to some places that you wouldn't believe, you know. Place we used to call Slack Canyon, and I used to call it Bat Canyon, you know. But we used to go. We used to spend a day together. We just shared a certain kinship of doing things together, a certain intimacy that I never shared even with my most close family, my relatives. I didn't share these experiences with my relatives. We didn't talk very much in my family. And one of the things we didn't say in our family is, I love you. That was a lost word. I can never remember my mother just telling me, even as a little kid, say, I love you. She had too much, hey, she was running around, she had to spread it thin, you know. And probably she was looking for some love herself. There was no drugs and alcohol in my household. There was a lot of confused people in my household. There was a lot of sickness in my household. And I can't blame none of these people. See, I carried this blame a lot of years far away. I was 5,000 miles away, and I blamed Mom for something that happened. I wonder about Mom. Wonder how Mom's going to take this one. Huh? And Mom, I hadn't talked to her in 5 or 10 years. I was always wondering how Mom was going to take care of it, right? I was never ready to take the responsibility for me. And I come to Narcotics Anonymous in order to try to take care of the responsibilities to me. They gave me the tools in order to take care of those responsibilities to me. You have shared with me some of your life. You have shared your love with me. And these things are very important. They're very important to me because I crave these things. The fact is, I'm addicted to these things. I'm looking forward to some more love and this here, you know, caring and the sharing that goes on. These are the things I want. These are the things I look for more of. If you have not, come to Narcotics Anonymous to find out what your problem is about, I think that if you're missing something, if you don't take the opportunity to really find out what your problem is all about. Our problem is addiction. It's a total game. It has nothing to do with drugs. It has something to do with that within, that compulsion and that obsession within that we have to deal with. We have the tools in order to do something about it. The 12 steps of recovery. I hope everybody will stay around long enough for that to occur in your life as it has occurred in my life, to experience that which is intended for you, the good that is intended for you. Stay around long enough for the magic to happen. And that's one of the messages I tell most all people. Stay around long enough for it to happen. I want to thank you.
That's great, man. That's great. I want to thank Bob and Martin, and I want to thank my host, because I can really feel humble now, because I hear some other voices talk about the problems I've had too. Ed Albury is our tape man here, in case somebody would like to have some of this tapes of this meeting. And before I close, are there any announcements you want to make, Ron, or anybody? And once again, I love you all. I thank you for letting me put in my 2 cents. Ron?
Thing real quick. Hi, my name's Ron. I'm an addict. The park across the street from the hotel, I didn't have it posted last night, but after 8 o'clock there's a curfew in Wichita, and you will be arrested. So just stay out of the park after 8 o'clock if you will, please. Thank you.
Just the park. Just the park. They've got some, I don't know, they sell something down there. I don't know what the hell it is. If there's no further, shall we end the meeting with the Lord's Prayer, please? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.